Ibukan Adeyemi was a tall, calm man with a warm smile. He ran a famous law firm in Lagos called Adeyemi and Company. Many people respected him and believed he always did what was right. But late one evening he stood by his office window, looking down at the twinkling lights of the city. He felt worried, as if a shadow lay over his mind. His heart was heavy because he had heard many strange complaints from important clients. They said important case files went missing or ended up full of small errors that caused big problems. Ibukan did not know who was behind these mistakes, and this mystery made him nervous. He thought, someone could be doing this on purpose, but why? He did not want to speak too loudly about his fears. The law firm was his pride and joy. He had built it from scratch, using his savings and countless hours of hard work. When he was younger, he could only dream of having such a big practice. But he had built it well, making sure to hire the best lawyers and train them so they could help all kinds of clients. Now, many top people trusted Adeyemi and Company to handle serious cases. Losing that trust would crush Ibukan's spirit. He sighed and pulled out his phone to call his wife, Ifeoma. Ifeoma was at home, reading a magazine at the kitchen table. When she heard Ibukan's voice, she knew something was wrong. She quickly asked him, "My dear, you sound uneasy. Has something happened at work?" Ibukan closed his eyes for a moment before answering. "I keep getting strange reports," he said. "Clients are angry. Our best lawyers say they are losing key documents, or these papers show up with big mistakes that none of them remember making. The errors look small at first, but they cause big troubles in court. I am scared it may be a plan to damage our firm." Ifeoma understood how much the law firm meant to her husband. She had watched him pour all his energy into it for many years. Now that the firm was so close to the top, it hurt her to see him worried. She asked softly, "Could this be an accident, or maybe someone inside is trying to bring you down?" Ibukan paused. "I cannot tell," he admitted. "I want to believe it is just a few careless errors. But this is happening too often, especially with important cases. Something feels very wrong." Ifeoma placed her hand on her phone, as if she could reach through it and comfort him. "We will find a way to solve this," she said. "Maybe we can look closer at the people in the office. We can keep our eyes and ears open. But we have to be careful." Ibukan let out a shaky laugh. "Yes, we must be careful," he agreed. "I can't just accuse my staff of wrongdoing without proof. They're lawyers after all. They know the rules. But a few of them have acted strange lately. I also noticed Dare, one of my senior partners, pushing for sudden changes. It might just be nothing, but it could be something more." When Ibukan reached home, Ifeoma greeted him at the door. He hugged her tightly, thankful for her support. That night, they spoke in low voices about all the little signs pointing to a hidden hand causing trouble. Ibukan looked more tired than usual. He said he was worried that if there truly was a plot, it would soon get worse. Ifeoma could almost feel his fear. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, telling him, "We will figure it out together." She believed that his best plan might be to uncover the truth from inside. But how could he do that when everyone in the office knew who he was? That was the moment Ifeoma had a sudden idea. Her eyes lit up, and she turned to Ibukan with a tiny smile. "You need someone on the inside who nobody will suspect," she said. "What if I pretend to be a new cleaner? Nobody notices the cleaner. I can walk around, blend in, and listen. I can see who is doing what." Ibukan stared at her in surprise. "You? Working as a cleaner?" he asked. "You have never done that before, and it might be risky. People in the firm might recognize you." Ifeoma shook her head. "I know how to hide in plain sight," she said. "Think about it. Most people don't pay attention to someone in a uniform, emptying trash or mopping floors. And not everyone at the firm has met me face to face. I only show up at special events or parties. I can wear a scarf or a simple cap. Nobody will guess." Ibukan looked at her, uncertain. He worried about her safety, but also knew she was clever. Finally, he said, "If you want to do it, we should be sure you can stay safe. I don't want you getting hurt or caught in the middle of something dangerous." Ifeoma understood his worry, but she felt a strong need to help. She said, "We have to save your law firm from harm. You work too hard for it. Besides, we can do this quietly." I will keep my phone hidden on me at all times, so I can record anything strange. And I will text you if I feel unsafe." Ibukin still looked uneasy, but there was a bit of hope in his eyes. He nodded slowly, and they shared a smile. It was a plan, though a risky one. The next morning, Ibukin arrived at the office earlier than usual. He went straight to the security room and spoke to the head of security, Mr. Onu. Ibukin trusted him. He explained that his wife would come in as a new cleaner, and he asked Mr. Onu to watch over her silently. The older man raised his eyebrows in surprise, then nodded. "I will do my best," he promised. "I won't say a word to anyone, and I will keep an eye on her on the cameras." A short while later, Ifeoma stood outside the firm's main doors, wearing worn-out shoes, plain pants, and a faded shirt under a navy blue apron. She held a mop in one hand and a small bucket in the other. She looked nothing like the graceful, stylish woman who usually walked by Ibukin's side at fancy dinners. She glanced around, her heart pounding. She had butterflies in her stomach, but she felt ready. Ifeoma walked into the busy reception area. The large marble floor sparkled under bright lights. Employees rushed around with stacks of paper and buzzing phones. Nobody gave her a second look. She took a steady breath. It was time to begin. She offered a shy smile to the front desk person and said, in a soft voice, "I'm the new cleaner. Where should I start?" The young receptionist barely glanced at her. She waved a hand toward a hallway that led to rows of offices. "You can start with the conference room," she said, sounding distracted. "Just don't get in anyone's way." Ifeoma nodded. She gripped her mop and wheeled her bucket carefully so it didn't spill. As she walked, she noticed small details around her. She saw locked doors with golden nameplates, tall glass walls showing glimpses of lawyers talking with each other, and hush-hush whispers that echoed softly. Every step made her more sure that something big was happening here, and she was right in the middle of it. She remembered Ibukin's worried face and reminded herself that this was for him, for their family, and for the future of Adeyemi and company. She paused for a moment outside a meeting room. She could hear people arguing inside. Their voices were low, but they sounded upset. She tried not to look too curious, though her ears tingled with anticipation. This was exactly why she was here, to catch the signs of trouble that others overlooked. Her heart pounded as she slowly moved her mop across the shiny floor, ready to pick up any clue that might lead her to the person behind the firm's problems. Still, she felt a small flicker of fear. What if someone guessed who she was? Could Dare, that stern senior partner, recognize her face if he happened to look too closely? Ifeoma knew she had to be more careful than ever. She pushed those worries aside. She trusted her disguise for now, but she reminded herself to stay alert. She had to act like a simple cleaner, invisible and harmless. For a second, she thought about the moments she spent with Ibukin the previous night. She remembered the exhaustion in his voice and the gentle worry in his eyes. She remembered how important this mission was. She would not fail. She took a breath, moved forward, and began to mop the floor in gentle strokes. Each stroke seemed to say, "I am here to protect my husband and find the hidden truth." She turned the corner, heading to the conference room, her mind focused on the task ahead. She knew this was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, she had stepped into it by choice, and she would not stop until she uncovered the mystery lurking in Adeyemi and company. In that moment, Ifeoma understood something very clear. She was not just a wife in a disguise. She was now the quiet eye that would see all the secrets the shadows hid. And as the door to the conference room opened before her, she felt a spark of courage pushing her onward. Ifeoma stood outside the conference room door for a moment, trying to calm her beating heart. She could hear voices on the other side, low and tense, like people arguing quietly. She turned the handle slowly, carrying her mop and bucket inside. A few lawyers at a long table barely noticed her. They were busy flipping through papers and shaking their heads. One of them, a man with a trimmed beard, spoke in a hushed tone. "This is the third time we've lost an important document this week." Another person, a woman in a neat black suit, tapped her pen on the table and whispered, "Dare will not be happy about this. He blames us for every mistake." Ifeoma kept her eyes on the floor while she moved her mop, but her ears caught every word. When the lawyers finally looked up and saw her, they paused. The man who had been speaking stared at Ifeoma as if she were an intruder. "We booked this room for an urgent meeting," he said sharply. "Must you clean here now?" Ifeoma kept her head bowed, her voice quiet. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll just finish quickly." She made sure her eyes did not linger on their files, though she wondered what was written on those scattered pages. One sheet was crumpled at the edge of the table, and a line of text seemed to mention a missing brief. She picked up her bucket, letting the water slosh a bit, and stepped out. She heard the man grumble under his breath, "These little mishaps are getting worse every day." She left the room, but her mind stayed behind with those worried voices. She felt sure that the missing documents problem was part of a bigger plan. She remembered what Ibuken had said the night before. Someone might be doing this on purpose. If that were true, then these lawyers were becoming pawns in a dangerous game. She walked down the hall, noticing how bright lights reflected on the shiny floor. She saw people walking fast, some holding folders close to their chests, as if afraid someone might snatch them away. She realized that tension filled the entire building. She soon came to a small break area. There was a table with a kettle, some cups, and sugar. One young man in a gray suit stood there, sipping tea. He seemed about her age, maybe younger. He noticed her and smiled kindly. "Oh, hello," he said, raising his cup in a friendly greeting. "You must be the new cleaner, right?" "I'm Ibuka." Ifeoma nodded with a slight smile. "Yes, I just started. I'm sorry if I'm in your way." Ibuka waved his hand. No, you're fine. I actually wanted to thank you because these floors can get so dirty, and we do need someone to keep them clean." She found his politeness heartwarming, and for a second, she forgot she was undercover. "You're welcome," she said softly. "I'll do my best." Ibuka glanced around to make sure nobody else was nearby. Then he leaned in a bit and whispered, "Things have been crazy around here. People keep losing important paperwork, and it's always something that makes us look bad in front of clients. Just last week, we had a huge case file vanish right before a meeting." He shook his head and sighed. "I heard Dare was furious. Some people are saying he's pushing for big changes at the firm." Ifeoma acted like she did not know who Dare was. She just nodded and asked, "Why are these mistakes happening?" Ibuka let out a short, bitter laugh. "I wish I knew. It's scary when big files disappear. Our clients trust us to be perfect. If we keep messing up, we might lose them. And trust me, that would be a disaster." Then he sipped his tea one more time, quickly checked his watch and said, "I have to go. Another meeting soon." With that, he gave her a small wave and disappeared down the hallway, leaving Ifeoma with more questions swirling in her mind. As she continued cleaning different rooms, she heard fragments of conversations here and there. In one corner, two paralegals were talking about how Dare had shouted at someone that morning, accusing them of sloppiness. In another office, a woman on the phone whispered that her research documents had been mixed up, and she didn't know how it happened. All these little clues painted a picture that felt more like sabotage than simple errors. Each time Ifeoma heard Dare's name, it came with a hint of fear or anger. Later in the day, she went into a lounge area meant for employees to relax. She wanted to empty the trash can. There she met Lebaik, a kind woman with braided hair. Lebaik was an administrative assistant, busy sorting letters into neat piles. She paused to smile at Ifeoma. "You look tired," Lebaik said gently. "This firm is so big, you must have a lot to do." Ifeoma nodded, glad to have someone to talk to. She quietly asked, "I hear people keep losing files. Is it always like this?" Lebaik frowned and shook her head. "Never. This place used to be so well organized. I don't know what's going on. Dare is raging almost every day. He threatens people, makes them feel small. I know people who have cried in the bathroom after he yelled at them. But we can't speak up too loudly. He is a senior partner, after all." Ifeoma pressed her lips together, thinking about her next question. She asked softly, "Do you think it's an accident or something else?" Lebaik lowered her voice, her eyes darting around to check if anyone was near. "I'm not sure, but it's strange that all these mistakes keep leading to bigger problems. Important clients have started noticing. It doesn't feel random." She stacked another pile of letters and added, Be careful around Dare. He's sharp. If he thinks you're prying, he won't be kind. Ifeoma thanked Lebake, emptied the trash, and left the lounge. Her heart pounded as she stepped into a nearby hallway. So many people seemed worried, yet nobody had proof of who was behind all these vanished files. With her mop handle in hand, she walked slowly, scanning the area. At the far end of the hallway, she saw an open door. She peeked inside and realized it was a small storage room full of boxes and old case papers. Nobody was there. She went in to tidy up, but mostly she wanted to see if there was anything odd. She began moving a broom that leaned against the wall, and just then, she noticed a corner of shredded paper poking out of a large trash bin. She bent down and picked it up. Part of the text was gone, but she could make out a few words. Trial date, changed, must not reach Ibuken, and delay. Her mouth went dry. Could this be more evidence of foul play? She heard footsteps in the hallway, so she quickly tucked the shredded bit of paper into her apron pocket. She stood up and pretended to clean. A moment later, Dare himself strode past the open door. He paused, seeing Ifeoma inside. She felt her heart jump, but she kept her face blank. He frowned at her. "Who are you?" he asked in a stern voice. "I haven't seen you before." She bowed her head politely. "I'm the new cleaner, sir. I started today." Dare studied her for a few seconds, his eyes cold. "Did anyone give you permission to go through those boxes?" he asked, his tone sharp. Ifeoma shook her head quickly. "No, sir, I was only sweeping." The door was open. Dare made a small, annoyed sound. "Well, hurry up and finish. This area is off-limits to most staff. Don't poke your nose where it doesn't belong." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Ifeoma felt the tension drain from her body, replaced by a wave of relief. She had to be more careful. A single slip could make Dare suspicious. She exhaled slowly, grabbed her mop, and left the storage room. In her pocket, the piece of shredded paper burned like a warning that she was digging into a dangerous secret. After another hour of cleaning small offices and corridors, it was time for her to head out for the day. She made her way to a side exit to avoid running into Dare again. At the door, she paused, thinking about everything she had seen and heard. People were scared and fed up. Documents were vanishing. Dare seemed to be at the center of it, or at least knew more than he let on. Ifeoma felt both determined and nervous. She had to keep digging, but she also had to hide her true identity well. She could not let her guard down. She stepped outside into the warm Lagos air, the sun just starting to set. She took her phone from her pocket to send Ibuken a quick message. "Day 1 ended," she wrote. "I have a clue. Will tell you soon." She pressed send, then tucked the phone away. This was only the beginning, and she needed to stay calm. Tomorrow she would come back, mop in hand, eyes wide open, ready to search for more answers. Something important was happening inside Adeyemi and Company, and she intended to find the truth, no matter how complicated it became. The next morning, Ifeoma returned to the firm with the shredded paper still tucked in her apron pocket. She felt a mixture of excitement and dread. When she stepped through the doors, the atmosphere felt heavier than before. People darted around, looking over their shoulders as if afraid. She spotted Ibuka in the hallway, talking rapidly to another lawyer. She waited until he was alone and whispered, "I found a strange note mentioning a trial date change. Do you know anything about that?" Ibuka blinked, clearly startled. "No, but that sounds like the kind of tampering that's been ruining our cases," he said, lowering his voice. "Have you told anyone else?" Ifeoma shook her head. "Not yet. I don't know who to trust." Ibuka leaned forward. "Talk to Lebake. She handles a lot of internal files. If something is missing or changed, she might notice it first." Ifeoma thanked him and moved on, careful to keep her mop and bucket in plain sight. She saw Dare at the far end of the corridor, locked in a tense conversation with a junior lawyer named Toyosi. Dare's voice rose. "We cannot afford more blunders," he hissed. Ifeoma quietly slipped away, her heart pounding. There was something in Dare's tone that made her certain he was more involved than he pretended. She found Lebake in the copy room, sorting papers. Lebake looked up and sighed. "It's only 9 in the morning, and I've already printed the same documents 3 times. she muttered. They keep disappearing. Ifioma hovered by the door. Do you remember which documents went missing? Lebake paused, eyes wary. Some were court motions. Others were client files. Each time, Dare demanded new copies, claiming the originals were lost. Ifioma pulled out the scrap of shredded paper and showed it to Lebake. I found this in a storage room, she whispered. Lebake read the words that remained, her face growing pale. This is bad, she said. Who would want to stop Ibuken from seeing the correct dates? If we show up on the wrong day or with the wrong papers, we lose big. A sudden noise in the hallway made them both jump. Toyosi stood there, eyes darting between them. His expression was guarded. Ifioma shoved the paper back into her apron. Lebake coughed, trying to appear casual. Toyosi narrowed his eyes but said nothing. After a tense moment, he left. Ifioma exhaled. We have to be more careful, she said to Lebake. I'm starting to think Dare has people helping him. Lebake nodded. He might, but we can't accuse him without proof. Feeling the urgency, Ifioma decided she needed to act at night, when the offices were empty. If she could search Dare's files without being seen, she might find solid evidence. She touched her apron pocket again, thinking, I must gather more clues before Dare or anyone else destroys them. And with that plan forming, she stepped back into the bustling corridors, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the risk. Ifioma woke up early the next day with a knot in her stomach. She had barely slept, thinking about the big case coming up. Ibuken had told her the night before that one of their biggest clients, Chief Okachukwu, was set for a major hearing in court. If Adeyemi and company made any mistake with this trial, they could lose the client forever and the firm's reputation would suffer. Ifioma felt a sense of urgency push her forward. She dressed in her cleaner's uniform again, told Ibuken to stay calm, and hurried out the door. When she arrived at the firm, the energy in the building was almost electric. Everyone seemed on edge. Most lawyers were busy polishing their final arguments and confirming meeting times, while paralegals ran around double-checking case files. Ifioma noticed Dare's office door was shut, but she could hear muffled voices inside. She recognized Dare's harsh tone, scolding someone, maybe Toyosi. She did not want to linger in the hallway too long, so she shuffled past, clutching her mop handle tighter than usual. Soon after, she spotted Ibuka near the printing station, looking frustrated. He held a stack of papers and was shaking his head. They just got swapped again, he muttered, spotting Ifioma. I printed a final witness statement, but when I came back, the pages were full of strange errors. Someone must have switched them. He lowered his voice. This is the final blow if we don't fix it now. Chief Okachukwu's hearing is tomorrow. One slip, and we lose everything. Ifioma's heart thumped. She thought about the shredded note in her apron pocket. It had warned about changing court dates so Ibuken would never see the real schedule. Now, key witness statements were also being messed with. She suspected Dare planned to wreck this case from the inside and make sure Ibuken looked incompetent. She needed proof strong enough for Ibuken to confront Dare without anyone escaping blame. Lebake rushed in, arms filled with fresh copies. We must lock these away, she said, sounding breathless. Someone keeps grabbing documents off the printer. I'm going to hand them straight to Ibuken. He's meeting with Chief Okachukwu soon to confirm last details before tomorrow. Ifioma stepped aside to let Lebake pass. She noticed that Lebake's eyes were red, as if she had been crying. The stress in this place was becoming too much for everyone. As Ifioma mopped the floors in a quiet hallway, she thought about the best way to catch Dare. She remembered telling Lebake that she might search Dare's office after hours. Tonight was her best chance. If she could sneak in while Dare was away, she might find hidden files or emails that revealed his plan. She would have to be fast and careful. Dare was sometimes the last person to leave, but with the trial looming, maybe he would go home earlier for once. As evening crept in, most people began packing up. Ibuka offered to stay late to help Ifioma, in case she needed any backup. She thanked him but insisted it was safer for her to move alone. If anyone saw her with Ibuka, they might guess she was more than just a cleaner. So Ibuka left, wishing her good luck in a low whisper. The office grew still and quiet. Ifeoma carried her bucket and mop to the far end of the hall, stopping near Dare's closed door. She placed her ear against it and listened. No voices. No rustling. Maybe Dare had finally gone home. She tried the handle gently, but she swallowed hard, thinking of a new plan. She remembered there was a side door that led from Dare's office to a smaller meeting room. That door was sometimes left unlocked for easy movement between rooms. She hurried to the adjacent meeting room. It was dim, lit only by the city lights shining in through large windows. Her footsteps sounded loud on the marble floor, but nobody was around to hear. She tried that door. It gave way with a small click. She entered Dare's office carefully, heart pounding as if it would burst from her chest. The room smelled faintly of cologne and burnt coffee. A large desk stood in the center, covered with files and scribbled notes. Ifeoma let out a slow breath and set her bucket aside. She started opening drawers, scanning for anything labeled with the case name. She found a folder that read Chief Okachukwu, Land Dispute. Inside were 2 sets of papers. One looked normal, but the other was full of crossouts and strange words scrawled in red ink. Delay motion. Wrong date for submission, she read under her breath. Her hands trembled. This was enough to prove Dare was tampering with the case. But maybe there was more. She dug deeper and found a small notebook. She flipped through it by the glow of the window. Each page listed sums of money and brief lines like payment to outside party, meet with contact after hours, and remove key witness statements. Ifeoma bit her lip. Dare was not working alone. Someone outside the firm also seemed involved. She needed to grab a few pages of these notes to show Ibuken. Her heart jumped when she heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Could Dare be coming back? She quickly stuffed the notebook into her apron pocket, along with copies of the tampered documents. Then she scrambled to the meeting room door, closing Dare's office behind her with the softest click she could manage. She stepped into the shadows, breathing in short, silent gasps. From the crack under the door, she saw a light switch on in Dare's office. She heard him mumbling. He must have realized the door was unlocked. "Who's been in here?" Dare growled, sounding furious. Ifeoma clenched her fists. She needed to leave before he started searching the place. She waited, feeling her legs burn from standing so still. After what felt like forever, the light in Dare's office snapped off again. She heard the door slam shut. The sound of his angry footsteps faded down the corridor. Ifeoma slipped out of the meeting room, bucket in hand, her heart still racing. She hurried toward the elevator, forcing herself not to run. She prayed Dare would not suddenly appear from around a corner. When she reached the lobby, she almost collapsed in relief. At last, she walked outside into the warm Lagos night, clutching her bag of evidence. She knew Ibuken would be proud of her for finding real proof. Yet she also knew the danger had increased. Dare clearly sensed that someone was snooping. He might lash out if he felt cornered. But Ifeoma had no choice. The hearing was just hours away. She had to give Ibuken these documents and hope they could fix any damage Dare might still do. With every step she took down the dark street, she told herself that this was the only way to save the firm. Tomorrow, everything would come to light, and she had to be ready for whatever happened next. Ifeoma arrived at home late that night, her mind racing with what she had found in Dare's office. She did not bother to change out of her cleaner's clothes. She went straight to Ibuken, who was sitting at the dining table, looking over some papers. He stood up the moment he saw her worried face. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, resting a hand on her shoulder. "I'm fine," she said, taking a deep breath. "But I found proof that Dare is tampering with our biggest case. He even keeps a notebook that shows he's planning to sabotage us." Her hands shook a little as she pulled out the files and the notebook pages. Ibuken's eyes widened when he saw them. He flipped through the pages, reading the red ink notes about fake court dates and missing witness statements. His face grew pale. "So it's true," Ibuken whispered. "I kept telling myself maybe this was only a small issue, but Dare is really trying to destroy us." He rubbed his forehead, looking like a man who had gone without sleep for days. "We have the hearing tomorrow morning. If we lose, Chief Okachukwu will walk away, and our firm's name will be dragged through the mud." Ifeoma wanted to hug him, but she remembered they had no time for comfort. "We can still stop him," she said. "We'll show the judge the real papers, not the ones Dare tampered with. You need to bring these genuine documents to court. We'll also keep Dare's notebook, in case we need to prove he was behind everything." Ibukin nodded slowly, as if trying to gather the strength to fight back. "Let's do it," he said at last. "First, we need to fix the final witness statements so the court has the right information." He glanced at the clock, which read close to midnight. Then he looked at Ifeoma with tired eyes. "I guess we're pulling an all-nighter." They worked side by side at the table, scanning pages, correcting errors, and printing clean copies. Ifeoma texted Labake, telling her to stay alert the next day and to be ready in case Dare tried anything else. By 3 in the morning, Ibukin finally had a stack of untainted documents. He looked at Ifeoma and took her hand. "Thank you," he said softly. "Without you, we would have walked straight into a trap." At dawn, they drove to the courthouse. The sun rose above Lagos, lighting up the busy streets. Ifeoma carried a sealed folder of the corrected files, and Ibukin held Dare's notebook in his briefcase. When they reached the courthouse entrance, they saw Chief Okachukwu waiting. He wore a serious look on his face. "I heard about some trouble with my papers," he said in a gruff tone. "You had better be ready, Ibukin." Ibukin kept his voice steady. "Sir, we discovered attempts to mess with your case. But we've put it right. I promise you, our team will defend your interests fully." Chief Okachukwu gave a slow nod, though he seemed uneasy. "I hope so," he muttered. "I've poured a lot of money into this dispute. I can't afford silly mistakes." Before Ibukin could reply, Dare approached them. He gave Ifeoma a quick, suspicious look, then turned his attention to Ibukin. "Good morning," he said, forcing a smile. "I trust we're all prepared." Ibukin looked him straight in the eye. "We're ready." Ifeoma noticed Dare's gaze flick toward the briefcase. She guessed he feared Ibukin might have discovered his secrets. Inside the courtroom, the judge took her seat and called the case to order. Ibukin presented the fresh documents, speaking clearly and calmly. Dare stood beside him, looking tense but trying to hide it. The opposing counsel tried to argue that Adeyemi and company had filed incorrect statements earlier, but Ibukin explained that those versions were false. He held up the correct ones, showing dates and signatures that matched the original client contracts. The judge frowned, shuffling through the papers. "Why were there 2 sets of statements?" she asked. Ibukin's voice did not shake. "Someone in our firm deliberately switched them. But we uncovered the real ones last night." The judge's eyebrows shot up. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Adeyemi. Do you have proof?" At that moment, Ifeoma noticed Dare take a step back, as if ready to slip away. She locked eyes with him, warning him that she was watching. Ibukin reached into his briefcase. "I do have proof, Your Honor," he said, pulling out Dare's notebook and flipping to the pages with instructions about changing the court date and editing the witness list. Dare's face went pale. The judge examined the notebook carefully, then looked at Dare. "Sir, can you explain this?" she asked. Dare's voice cracked. "These notes, they're not mine. They must have been planted." He glanced around, desperate for support, but none of the lawyers seemed eager to defend him. Even Toyosi, who stood at the back, looked down at his shoes, unwilling to speak. Chief Okachukwu glared at Dare. "Planted? This is your handwriting, Dare. I've seen it on other documents. Don't lie to my face." Dare stumbled over his words, but the judge raised a hand. "Enough," she said firmly. "For now, I will allow the correct documents. This trial will proceed using Mr. Adeyemi's papers." The rest of the hearing moved quickly after that. Ibukin's team argued the case with clear evidence. By the time they finished, the judge agreed to side with Chief Okachukwu, ruling in his favor. Cheers of relief filled the room. Ibukin turned to Ifeoma and squeezed her hand gratefully. She felt tears sting her eyes. They had saved the firm, but Dare's part in all this was still up in the air. Soon, whispers spread through the courthouse that Dare's sabotage would be investigated. Chief Okachukwu approached Ibukin, giving him a firm handshake. "Your firm nearly lost my trust," he said, "but I see you've handled this wisely. I'll stay, but only if you clean up your house." I don't want any more snakes in your firm. Ibukin bowed his head. You have my word, sir. As they walked into the hallway outside the courtroom, Dare suddenly lunged toward Ibukin. He looked panicked. Please, he said in a hushed voice. I can explain. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Ibukin's jaw tightened. You tried to ruin the company I built, he said quietly. But we treated you like family. Dare's eyes darted left and right. I felt like you didn't appreciate my ideas. I wanted to force change, to show you that your old ways would fail. I never expected this to blow up. Ifeoma shook her head, struggling to hold back her anger. You almost destroyed people's lives just to prove a point? Dare hung his head, unable to reply. Before Dare could say another word, security officers approached. They had been informed about suspicious activity. Ifeoma felt no pity as they led Dare away. She thought of all the fear, worry, and stress he had caused. Ibukin sighed, heavy with sadness. I never wanted this, he said. But he left us no choice. Back at the firm a few hours later, the mood was mixed. People were relieved that the big client had won the case, yet they felt betrayed by Dare's actions. Ibukin called a quick meeting. He addressed the staff with a firm voice. Some of you may have heard that Dare was found sabotaging our work. From now on, we will enforce stricter checks on all documents. If anyone notices anything unusual, please speak up. Ibuka and Lebeik both looked at Ifeoma with grateful smiles. They knew her courage had helped them avoid a huge disaster. When the meeting ended, Ibukin asked Ifeoma to join him in his office. He closed the door and took her hands in his. I can't thank you enough, he said, eyes full of warmth. Without you, we'd have lost this case, and maybe even the entire firm. Ifeoma felt relief flood her body. I did it for us, she said. For everything we've built together. Ibukin kissed her forehead softly, grateful. Outside the window, the sun shone bright, as if a weight had lifted from the entire building. The staff returned to their work with a renewed sense of hope. Though scars remained, they all knew the firm would stand stronger. And as Ifeoma left Ibukin's office, she felt sure that by acting as a humble cleaner, she had not only protected her husband's dream, but also uncovered the hidden truth that nearly tore Adeyemi and company apart.